Hello, myself Vedant Gate, and in this video I am going to present a lower bound proof for the element distinctness problem. First things first, what is the element distinctness problem? In computational complexity theory, the element distinctness problem or element uniqueness problem is the problem of determining whether all the elements of a list are distinct or not. In simple words, to find if a given list of elements contains duplicate or not. Let's see an example. We have two lists over here, one which has elements 3, 4, 7, 6, 8 and 2, where all the elements are unique or distinct. But as we can see, the second list has an element repeated which is 1. So I can say that the first list is distinct whereas the second list is non-distinct. So how do we make our program detect the distinctness? There are three ways. First one is hashing. In hashing, we pass the inputs through hash function and map it to a key. If two hash are same, it means the elements are not distinct. Second method is sorting, where we sort an array and compare the consecutive elements for uniqueness. The third one is by using algebraic tree, where we build a linear tree for indices of list and use the tree to determine if elements are distinct or not. Now you must be wondering, what is a lower bound? Well, lower bound can be defined as the minimum time necessarily required for an algorithm to prove the desired output for an input of size n. In formal notation, we can say that let L of n be the running time of an algorithm A, then g of n is the lower bound of A if there exist two constants c and n such that L of n is greater than or equal to c into g of n for all input n greater than n. Asymptotically, it is represented by the big omega notation. Now comes the question, what is the lower bound for the element distinctness problem? Well, the problem can be solved in big O of n log n time. But the real question here is, can we design an alternative algorithm that is faster than big O of n log n? Unfortunately, the answer is no. Can we create a tighter bound for this problem? The answer is no. And we'll see the proof of the minimal necessary time, that is a lower bound for this problem. Before moving towards the actual proof, let me introduce you to the decision tree model. The decision tree model in computational complexity, the decision tree model is the model of computation in which an algorithm is considered to be a decision tree, that is, a sequence of decisions or tests that are made depending on the outcome of the previous test. In simpler words, we can model an algorithm to be a sequence of decisions it will take to get to the output. And the sequence of decisions are such that the next decision is based on the previous decision. Generally, these tests have a small number of outcomes, mostly binary, that is, a yes or a no, such as the solution for the element distinctness problem. Let us see an example of a decision tree designed for sorting an array of three elements. Here we have an array A indexed 1 to 3. We can build a tree to compare all the elements and make decisions depending on the outputs. For example, if we check at the root node, we are comparing the first index of the array with the second index. Depending on whether the first index is less than or equal to the second index or whether it is greater than the second index, our tree will be built and the node will be traversed. So if the first element is less than or equal to the second element, we will land on the second node on the left hand side of the root, that is the left child. And on the left child, we will compare the second element with the third element, since we already know the comparison of first and the second element. And on comparing the second and the third element, we have now two options. If the second element is less than or equal to the third element, we will land on one leaf node, which will give us the result that the sorted array will be of the index 1, 2, 3. But if the second element is greater than the third element, then we go on the right child of this 2 and 3 comparison row node, and there we'll again have to compare it with the first element with the third element. And depending on this decision, we'll land on two different leaf nodes, which will be 1, 3, 2 or 3, 1, 2. Similarly, we can also build the right child from the root. Now let us note the observations from the example we just had. So we had three elements as input, and out of it, the tree we built had six terminal nodes or leaf nodes. That implies for an array of size n, we will have n factorial leaf nodes, and the height of the tree will be log n factorial. We can also state that asymptotically, the lower bound for this will be omega of n log n. Now that we know the concept of lower bound and decision tree, let us jump to the proof for the lower bound of element distinctness. To prove that the element distinctness problem has the lower bound of omega n log n, we will make three claims and prove those claims to be right, which ultimately be a proof for the said lower bound. The claims are as follows. First one will be that R of L is connected, which states that for any region leading to a leaf node is connected. The second claim we'll be making is that we will have a distinct S leaf. That is, for a vector X with distinct elements and its non-trivial permutation Y, we will always have distinct S leaves. And the third claim will be that the number of S leaves will be greater than or equal to n factorial, where n is the size of the input. Now let us go with these claims one by one. The first one, that is R of L is connected. So formally we can state this claim as let R of L be instances which land on a leaf node L upon execution. Then R of L is convex and connected. Now let me explain the meaning of convexity and connectedness in the next slide. Now what is the meaning of a connected or a connected region? A region R is said to be connected if for any points x and y belonging to R, there exists a path from x to y passing entirely through R. Which means for a given region, if there are 2 points x and y such that there is a path to reach from x to y, and if this path lies in that region, then the region is said to be connected. Now, convexity is further a subset of connectedness, where we say that the path between x and y must be a straight line path. So in connectedness, we just say that between 2 points x and y, there must exist a path. But in convexity, we put in some restrictions, and the restriction is that the path must be a straight line path. So formally speaking, a region R is said to be connected if for any points x, y belonging to R, the straight line path from x to y passes entirely through R. This is convexity. Now that we know these concepts, let us jump to the proof of first claim that R of L is connected. Now the proof here, let us move on to the proof. The proof says that let x equals x1 to xn and y equals y1 to yn be 2 points in R of L. For decision or instance x, let L be reached. That is, from x we are reaching to a leaf node L. And for a decision or an instance y, let L be reached. That is, even from y we are reaching a leaf node L. Now let instance z be z1 to zn such that for every I, z equals k into x of I plus 1 minus k into y of I. Here, k lies in the range of 0 to 1, meaning 0 is less than or equal to k and k is less than or equal to 1. This implies that z lies on a straight line between x and y. Now, let I and j be indices on a branch with decision greater than. Then we can say that x of I will always be greater than x of j and y of I will be greater than y of j. To understand this better, let us call back the three examples that we have seen. In this example, for a path, say greater than, elements will always obey the rule that x of I is greater than x of j. Here, as you can see that on the path highlighted, x of I will always be greater than x of j for all instances on the path. Now, if I multiply the inequalities by k and 1 minus k and I add these inequalities, I get k into x of I plus 1 minus k into y of I greater than k into x of j plus 1 minus k into y of j, which implies that z of I is greater than z of j because the LHS of this inequality is nothing but z of I and the RHS of this inequality is nothing but z of j. Now since x of I is greater than x of j and y of I is greater than y of j and z of I also comes out to be greater than z of j, this clearly implies that these three lie on the same path and hence we can say that R of L is convex and is connected. So here we have proved the first claim. Now let us move to the second claim. The second claim is that distinct yes leaves. That is, the claim states that let x equals x1 to xn consist of distinct elements and let y equals y1 to yn be a non-trivial permutation of x. Then x and y must reach distinct yes leaves. Now before we jump into proving the distinct leaves claim, let me prove a subclaim which will be used in further proofs. The claim says that for any x and its permutation y, there exists an I, j such that x of I is less than x of j, while y of I is greater than y of j. Now let me prove this with an example. Let x be a list or a vector such that you can see here that we have an x which is a list, a vector of distinct elements 3, 4, 7, 6, 8 and 2. And we have y which is a non-trivial permutation of x, which means the distinct elements in x and the distinct elements in y are the same, but the sequence or the order is changed. So y is nothing but a permutation of the elements in x. Now let us define a function f of x such that the function f sorts x. So when I apply the function f on x, I get a sequence which is a sorted list, and that sequence will be 2, 3, 4, 6, 7 and 8. Now you can see that for each I comma j in f of x, if I is less than j, f of x of I is less than f of x of j. If I apply this function f on y, then I get the output 846237. Now how is this output? I'll explain. So what I've done is a mapping of x to y. So if you can see in the x array, we have 3, 4, 7, 6, 8 and 2. And if we track the index, 4 is at an index in y where 3 is at an index in x. That is the first index. Similarly, for the second index, in x we have 4 and in y we have 6, and so on up till the last index where in x we have 2 and in y we have 8. Now, after applying this function, in f of x I have 2 in the first index, 3 in the second index and 4 in the third index. So I'll have to map it from y to f of y. In x, 2 was at the last index and in y 8 was at the last index. So in f of x, if 2 is at the first index, then the index at which 2 was present in x and the element at the same index in y will come in f of y. So in f of y, the first element will be 8, the second element will be 4, and the third element will be 6, and so on. Also notice that there exists an I comma j where f of y of I has become greater than f of y of j. For example, in f of y, if you take I is equal to 1 and j is equal to 2, then f of y of 1 is 8, which is definitely greater than f of y of 2, which is 4. Hence, our claim is proved here. Now, let's see the proof for the distinct leaves claim. Now, the proof here says that let x consist distinct values such that x equals x1 to xn and y is some trivial permutation of x such that y equals permutation of x equals y1 to yn, where both y and x land on some yes leaf. It might be different yes leaf or it might be a same yes leaf, but as of now we are assuming that there are some yes leaves. Now let us assume that the x and y land on same yes leaf and R of L is connected, which implies that there exists a path P from x to y which goes entirely through L. Now, since we have proved this in the first claim, I can say that if R of L is connected, there exists a path P from x to y which will go entirely through L. Now let there be an instance Z which belongs to the path P. Now to prove the claim, let us define a function f of w such that f of w equals to w of I minus w of j. Now, as we have proved that there exists an I comma j such that x of I is less than x of j and y of I is greater than y of j, we can say that using the formula for f of w, that is the continuity formula, I can say that f of x will always be 0 because f of x will be x of I minus x of j, and since x of I is less than x of j, it will always yield a negative value. So f of x will always be less than 0, and similarly for f of y, we will have y of I minus y of j, and since y of I is greater than y of j, it will always be a positive value. So we can have f of x less than 0 and f of y greater than 0. Now, using the mean value theorem, there exists a z belonging to the path P such that f of z equals 0. This implies that for the function f of z, which is z of I minus z of j, we get the value equals 0. So basically, z of I minus z of j equals 0, which implies z of I equals z of j. This means that z is landing on a no leaf. Since z of I equals z of j, it means that these are not distinct values. These are same values, and which means that z is leading to a path which is landing on a no leaf. But ideally, it should have landed on a yes leaf, as it is on the same path as that of x and y. So this contradicts our assumption that x and y are landing on same leaf, which means for any x and its permutation y, x and y land on different yes nodes. And for n such permutations, there exists n factorial distinct nodes. Now this brings us to our third claim, which says that the number of yes leaves will always be greater than or equal to n factorial. Let us see the proof for it. Now, by proving that for instances belonging to a connected region R of L, there exists distinct yes leaf for every permutation of instance, we can say that for an input of size n, we will have n factorial permutations, and so the number of leaves need to be at minimum n factorial. Hence, the number of distinct yes leaves is greater than or equal to n factorial. We can say this on the basis of observations made in the decision tree model. So now what's the conclusion? Following all the claims, we can state that for a given input of size n, the algorithm for element distinctness problem will have at minimum n factorial leaf nodes, and its tree will have log n factorial height, which implies that the lower bound for this problem will be omega of n log n. Here, we have proved that the lower bound for the element distinctness problem is omega of n log n. Now, a very interesting point to note here is that this omega of n log n is the lower bound for the element distinctness problem. Now, here's the difference between a problem and an algorithm. A problem will always have a lower bound, and depending on the approaches of how we design the algorithm, will have its upper bound. So, an algorithm which solves the element distinctness problem can have an upper bound of n square or even anything greater than n log n. But it cannot have an algorithm which will solve this element distinctness problem in a time lesser than the n log n, where n is the size of the input. This is what we have proved with the lower bound. So if you have any questions, please write it in the comment box and I will try to entertain them to the best of my knowledge. Thanks for watching. For any queries, you can also write to me at gatevedant@knights.ucf.edu. Thank you.